Well, I mean, first you have to learn, right? You have to have a coach in the nonlinear system that's good enough to impart the knowledge to you. You can't just look at it and go, okay, well, I see the 45 is optimal contact point, so I'll swing real fast at the 40. No, it's a closed system. So you have to really understand the system. That's why super consciousness I don't talk about until after players have a clue, because you can't just understand it. It has to be a part of you. You have to have both feet in our system. And that's the thing in the beginning. Players come out to see me, and the first day or two, they question things. I've never heard this before. It's the opposite of what I've been told. Uh, and and then they get more comfortable with it. They see the results, and after usually a couple of hours tops, they start to buy into it, and then all of a sudden they own it like it's theirs. And that's you have to get to that point. So the drills that we do, the blueprints that we lay out on the court, using the Excalibur, the swivels, everything we do gets you to that point where it's no longer you borrowing the system from us and trying it out. It's your system. And so I think first you really have to understand it. That's why I treat my little kids pretty much the same way I treat my adults. I treat the adults like big kids, and I treat the little kids like big kids because it's better that they learn something. Here's a 90-degree angle. You see these two lines at the service box? Well, if you cut it in half, there's your fourth. So they have to really buy into it. They have to really be able to explain it back to you. And I usually will do, before I do super consciousness, I'll also talk about the 1 minute stroke. They have to be able to really understand how the stroke evolves in a perfect stroke, and they've got to be able to do it in super slow motion. And so once, I think, once they get past that hump and they're living at the 45, so to speak, um, well, then there's lots of different ways to do it. One of the first things I tell a player is, yeah, I mean, feel how your inner body moves your outer body, right? Contrary motion. And then I use the Excalibur to show them, oh, well, you can also see it from the outside in. You see that bulbous face, that rounded face? Well, you've got to keep that facing the ball when you make contact, which means you've got to keep stretching deeper into the hit, into the 45 with your fingers. That's why everyone says lay your fingers back. The Excalibur shows you exactly how much to lay your fingers back. So it's no more guesswork. So, yeah, so I like players to really first understand how their inside creates this form that goes to the outside of the stroke, the racket head. And then vice versa. I like to bring it from the outside inside. And then I like to see it from all different angles. I mean, I like to uh, be conscious of the non-dominant hand for a while. If you remember, we did that with you a lot. So you're conscious with the non-dominant hand. So now you've got 3 or 4 different ways to look at it. Then when I get a player who really starts to understand, and I can see that their stroke is going at that angle, small to big at the 45, and I can see, okay, they kind of get it. Then I tell them, hey, when you're playing, look at yourself from above. I think I told you that once. And see yourself from above. And what would it look like? Would it look like that dot, which is supposed to be, remember that dot is your space in the world? It's not supposed to be moving around. It's supposed to be centered, so to speak. You're supposed to be centered. And, would you feel if you were looking from above that nice line coming off your body was really clean and it looked good from above? That's why we like to use the drone camera a lot. I like people to really understand that the stroke, there's a pure form to the stroke, and you can see it from above. So that's a great way to think of it. Do more with less, right? I always say to students, how little can you, well, how little can you move and do everything? And how slowly can you do everything and still produce a nice solid hit, even a hard hit? And so it's really important that you see that the purity of form is more valuable than any conscious effort you want to put into it, or oomph, or you impart your will on the ball. Pure form will always really stand out and and produce a pure hit. Um, so I think super slowness we talk about, and we talk about the view from above. Um, Other ways, fly with both wings, that non-dominant hand has to be a part of it. I also get players to always start to play with their opposite hand. So if they're a righty, we play left-handed. That's a great way to become super conscious because you don't have the confidence with your left hand. So you really, really follow the lines and then you go, wow, I can play lefty. And that's a really great feeling for some people to understand that their brain can produce a stroke with their non dominant hand. Um, uh, Other things you can tell players is, focus on your breathing, try to, you know, let your breathing take over so you can feel all these things at the same time. Um, but I would say those are really some of the bigger ways to become super conscious. Any of those 6 or 7 cues, do less, play lefty. I think playing two-handed helps make you super conscious because then you become symmetrical on both sides. Same reason I like players to play with their opposite hand. Uh, in fact, when we warm up, I mean, I make it a religion, a habit to always warm up short court, either two hands on both sides or opposite hand. Almost never, let's just start playing with your right hand. I don't think I ever do that. Um, Maybe with a player who's just coming to see me for the first time, and I don't want to scare him to death because most of them put the racket in two hands and the first 5 balls go in the bottom of the net because they haven't discovered their wheelhouse at the 45 yet. So it's something I introduce in the second level, third lesson. Um, but yeah, I would say those are primarily the ways I get someone to feel super conscious.